we're out here back on the St. Lawrence. I'm going to show you guys some of the new features for the Ghost trolling motor and the Pro units that are on the 25.2 update. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you basically it's anchoring off a distance at off a location. Okay, that's the first one. Then I'm going to show you how to circle around that same location, and then I'm going to show you the depth routing. So what I've got is I've got a marker buoy here, and this marker buoy we're going to drop it in the water, set a waypoint on it, and then we're going to use that as our reference point to both orbit on that and also to anchor off at a distance. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll show you the other piece. So what we're going to do is I'm going to drop this marker buoy right here at the boat. Okay, and the way to do that, I'm just going to throw it over the side. Okay, so that's in the water. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to take and mark a waypoint here. Okay, and the waypoint is here. And I'm just going to create a new waypoint, and this is going to be our test location. Okay. All right. So that's our waypoint. So now I've got the marker buoy. We're sitting on top of it, and so now what we're going to do, and I'm going to do a save on that. Okay. All right. So if you look on our map right now, I've got it on the screen here. Let me put us back. We're sitting right on top of the waypoint. What it is, I renamed that so you can see it here. I put all zeros in, so when it brings up a waypoint list, it's easy to find it again. That's that little trick I showed you in the route video, if you haven't watched that. So let's go ahead. We got it set up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide I'd like to go from that waypoint that I created, and I'm going to hover around that, or I'm going to set a waypoint at a certain distance off of that. Okay, so I'm going to trolling. We're going to get off of anchor mode because right now we're on anchor. We're going to go to standby mode. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go do anchor mode. I'm going to anchor at a distance. Okay. So you see when I come up, there's this distance. So I'm going to do the distance. I'm going to do this waypoint. And my waypoint, again, comes up in that list because I put 4 zeros in front of it. That's the waypoint I'm going to use, test lock. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to come into this location here. And we're going to come off at a distance, okay? And I'm going to anchor at a distance of 47 feet, okay? And and if we want to change the distance, let's go at, say, 55 feet. So we're going to put 55 feet in there, okay? I'm hit OK. And so now we're going to do an anchor, okay? So now what it's going to do is it's going to move the boat from that location we had on the screen over here. And you notice that I had actually touched over in that area. So that let me set a direction, or basically an initial position. So if you want to set up on a waypoint and then say cast a certain angle to it, that way you can have your waypoint there, put your map at the right location, touch the anchor there, and that's where you want to position from. So now we're at the location, and so now what we're doing, the boat's spinning around, probably, and we'll show, look at this. We got 2 big ships out here in the channel. They're just about across each other.
They're playing chicken.
Yeah. So they're having. Looks like we had a bass and a baritone going at it. So anyway, so now we're anchored back on our position. Okay. And you can see we're at an anchor point here. We're off a little bit. It should bring us right back to that position. But we're at 55 feet off of that location. So that's our first one. And so now to get out of that mode, you touch standby and it'll push you right back out, okay? So that's where we are. So it's because we got heavy current, we got both current in the river and we got wind current. It's shifting it around a little bit, but we're right now back on our waypoint. So that's the first update. Again, you got to have a Pro, you got to have a Ghost. They've got to be connected on the NEMA bus, and once you get everything configured and you got the proper hardware, you're good to go. Okay, so we're gonna hit the standby, come out of it. So now I'm off of that. So the next feature is I'm gonna do a circle. Okay, and that's what basically it's called an orbit. I can't even see the screen with my bad eye, so I'm going to do an orbit. I'm going to orbit on a waypoint. Okay, then I'm going to use the same waypoint we just orbited on. Okay, and that's going to be this waypoint. Now I'm going to set my distance. Okay, and the way to set the distance, you touch the screen, and we're going to tell it, and first I'm going to change the distance. Right now it says we're 45 feet, so let's go say, let's do 40 feet, okay? All right, hit okay. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to anchor, or we're going to orbit around that at 40 feet. Now the first thing you want to do, and it's something we haven't done yet, so I'm going to show you that because I'm doing it out of order. So go into your settings, okay? Go to autopilot settings. Make sure your arrival mode is set to standby on your arrival mode, and then you can do that. That way it'll keep navigating for you, okay? So now we're going to come back over here. We're going to do our, let's see where we are. So we're going to go back to orbit, okay? So in orbit, I'm going to orbit on the waypoint. There's our waypoint. Done deal. We got it set up. So now we have our distance at 52. Now we're going to go back and do our 40-foot circle on it. All right, there's that, and we're going to do a start clockwise. So now it's navigating clockwise. You can see, we're going to engage. You have to engage the autopilot. So now we're spinning. This is the route it's going to take. So what it did is it created a small route for you, and then so we're going to basically drive to each one of those points. Okay, so now the trolling motor's doing its work, and we're just going to spin around this thing. So where's our marker buoy? Well, okay. Oh. Whoa. I use the wrong marker buoy. That marker buoy will keep rolling with the wind and current. You need, if you're going to do a mark on there, use a marker buoy that doesn't keep moving on you. Okay, that one actually moved a little bit on us because we ran right over the thing. But also you look at the route actually took us over that. I think 40 feet is probably a little bit tight on this circle. Okay. Okay, so according to this, if you look at this map really close, right? It's not gonna let me zoom in while we're doing navigation. You can see little arrowheads on it. Okay. This operates the same as running a route if you run a route manually, and you'll see it'll clear off each leg each segment of the route when it's done it. So we'll just let it keep rolling until we're finished. So. And I'd say this update is a cute feature, but I think 40 feet's a little bit tight to rotate on a point. I'd probably shift it out to maybe 60, 70 feet or whatever. If you're trying to cast to a location, you probably want to be a lot further out. Okay, and you notice what happened. We just finished the route, and now I told it to, once we got to the location, so once we hit that end mode, now we're going to continue to navigate. So we're starting our loop again. So pretty much you can do this all day if you want to. Just kind of handy. Again, we can, if I need to increase or slow down the prop, I think that was a little bit fast. We'll just slow the prop down a little bit, down to say 65%. So that'll slow us down a little bit around that buoy. You'll see it's actually off center too. And that's an algorithm issue, I think. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, why we're off current on that. Because the waypoint's there, the buoy's still there. So this is the one on the orbit, okay? Again, my feeling is don't orbit 40 feet because this is just too close. So I'm gonna take it out of standby. All right, so now we're just drifting. So that's the orbits. This is what your screen's gonna look like afterwards. So that's that segment. So next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna run a depth route. So now we're gonna do the third part of the update, which is the running at a depth contour. Okay, so what I've got to do first on my map system, the first thing I have to do is set my map to the C map, okay? Because it doesn't work with other maps, what I've seen. So you gotta be on a C map. So I gotta come over here, change my map source to C map on board, okay? I don't have any of the chips in there, but I got the C map on. So what I wanna do, oops, let me clear, why is my cursor? There we go. Okay, so what I want to do is come over here to trolling. I'd like to go, say, between 23, 26 feet, okay, deep. So we're going to go to trolling. Okay, right now we're on anchor mode. So we've got to get it out of anchor mode. So we hit trolling, go to standby. Okay, now what I want to do is do depth routing. And so what I want to do is I want to set my minimum depth at 23 feet, which I already had set, but same type of pieces. There's that. My max depth is set to 27 feet. So let's set it to 26 feet. Oh, so, okay. So now we're going to create a new depth chart at those depths, okay? And so what we're going to do is now we're going to do a go on that. And so now it asks you to set your autopilot in there. And so we're going to hit yes. And now it's going to run that route for me. And if you look at the route it's going to run, it's going to follow that track there. So that's my track. It's basically going to try to get us back out of this shallower region, okay? And then we're going to get into, it's going to follow the map values, not the actual depth values, okay? Like for example, we were in 22 feet, which said, okay, now I got to get out to some depth for you to get there. So if we look at this map we're running, okay, there's our depth line right there. Boom, see it? There's the depth regions. Those red zones are the limits of what I ask for. The yellow spots there are all the route points they're going to use to follow this depth contour. So once we hit this first one, then we're going to follow this route through here. So, okay. And again, same thing as on the we're doing the autopilot stuff. It's going to say, hey, you reach a destination. You want to stop your navigation. No, just leave this one alone. Don't do anything. Okay. So, no, we generated the route, but we never ran. It's kind of cool how it creates that color bands for you. Look at that. Ooh, look at that. Oh, here we go. All right, so now we're on our depth contour. We reached the waypoint, and you notice it put the route up here on the screen. And so now it's going to drive from here to the next little mark, and then it'll follow this route out here. So this is pretty handy if you know the fish are in a certain zone, and that way you can just tell this thing to keep going. So now what it's going to do, it's going to keep going from point to point to point and keep asking me over on the other screen there, you want to stop your navigation. Just leave this alone. Let this one do what it wants to do. Again, keep running as long as you want to on this, and we'll see what happens when we get near the end there, when it doesn't have any more points. I don't think it'll generate another point, but we will see. All right. So it seems to be following the route and staying in the depth right. It's a little deeper according to my GPS or sonar, but it's running according to the routes that we asked it to do, which is 26-foot region. That says the map's off a little bit. Okay, so now we're up on our second point. You see every time we reach one of these points, it creates a new route segment for us. Okay, and so, and again, on my screen, if you looked at my setup videos, that blue arrow is our heading, which way we're going. And you can see this thing is off and back and forth. Again, if you're on a lake, more than likely it's going to be a lot cleaner. So now we just, again, once you get the rival location to the next point, it just generates a new route segment for you. Yeah, because we got current coming at right as, especially when we get around this point here. There's going to be a lot of current ripping through there. So it's not doing too bad. I've got the trolling motor down to like 65%. All the other testing I've been doing it's been running about 78% or so, somewhere in that range. So again, we're almost at the end of this one segment. We got a lot more segments to go. So let's just zoom this map out, see how many segments we got. So we got, holy mackerel. It generated quite a bit of points for us. Look at that. And it's got the bands way beyond this point, way up here. It's pretty cool. This I think is being a really, really handy feature. If you've got fish that are in a certain depth, you just let it rock and roll and go to town. I mean, it just be really cool. So I like using this feature if we're, say, running weed edges. Okay, if you got a deep weed line you're following, you set this thing up to run the weed edge by depth, and you stay right on the weeds. And that way, a lot of times, like in the St. Lawrence River, the smallmouth will sit right in the weeds, and they'll wait for something to go floating by them. So now you float your bait in front of them, they come out of the weeds, grab it. But they're not going to do that if you're way away from the grass line. This will let you stick close to the grass line. It's a pretty handy feature. So, all right. Okay. So So what we're going to do is we're just going to let this, we could let this thing keep going up to the point here. Let me show the point. But basically we're following this. So there's a underwater point to our left. We got a point up here. And we know this is not, there's a known grass line on us. You can see a little on the side scan. You probably won't be able to see it on the camera, but you can start to mark out a little bit of the grass line we're actually running parallel to. Again, pretty handy little feature. So, all right. So that's the third one out of this update. So I'm just going to take and stand by this. We'll get out of this navigation mode. Okay. And here's one thing I noticed. Immediately my screen went blank and the unit rebooted itself. That is a bug. Okay. I'm going to play with this and see if I can figure a way out of that. But as soon as you tell it to stop navigating from that screen, it will reboot your unit. Not a good thing. Definitely a bug. I'm going to report that to Lowrance and see if we can get that fixed for you guys. Okay. So the more we run this depth routing, the more we find a little weird glitches. Like for example, on my right unit. Okay. Every time we hit one of these points, it asks us whether we want to continue navigating or stop. And I've tried both where it either continues or stop, and it just keeps going anyway. So this has no effect. But what I've noticed is that we're on the left unit here, we got the shading in the areas where we're going between these points. Okay. On this one, we get the same thing, but it only goes to the next point. But let's look how wide it is. I mean, this thing is huge. See how wide that path is? So that's just, apparently that's normal, but it's just weird. Okay. Okay. Another one of those software's out, and that's about it. So, okay. So the other thing is that when we were doing it before, we went into trolling and we tried to do a standby or stop this navigation, and the system would reboot. Now what I did is I went into pages, went into settings, went into autopilot. I changed the arrival mode to anchor. Okay. And before we had it in standby. Okay. So it would just keep going. So when I changed it to anchor, I noticed initially it didn't reboot itself. So we're just going to stop it right now. And so everything was good there. So that's my workaround to run the depth routing so it doesn't crash your unit. Okay. Crashes in, it just forces it to reboot itself. Okay. So I've got a couple of bugs that I want to report to Lowrance and see if they can get those corrected for you guys. Okay. Done. All right. All right, this is a feature that I use a lot when I'm guiding up here. I'll set a waypoint on the screen and I'll drive the boat to it. I can sit here while all my clients are standing up on the front deck fishing. I'm not in their way, they're not in my way. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna simply tell it to go anchor at a waypoint. And we're gonna use the same waypoint that we used earlier, which has the marker buoy sitting on it. So now it's just gonna drive us over to that anchor point. And it's going to take a little bit, but that's okay. At least we're going with the current. So again, this is a neat little feature you can do all the time. I've used this feature on Champlain. Like for example, if you have a known waypoint, you want to drive, say, a flat, you have another waypoint at the end of the flat, you can just drive to that place. That way the boat just drives itself and you can do whatever you need to do. Like I say, it's great if you're guiding. It's also great if you got kids on board and they're constantly tangling up their hooks, or you're constantly catching fish and you're either popping them off the hook for them, or you're retying for them, or you're putting bait on their hooks. It's a nice little feature to have. Again, that's one of the features. It's not in the 25.2 update. It's in the original Ghost support. So, okay. All right. Hey guys, we're getting near that buoy in the water here. You can see it over here. So we're pretty close. It should anchor us right up on it, wherever it thinks the coordinate is. Again, it's based on the accuracy of the GPS antenna and all the fact that the government doesn't let us get exact coordinates. Yeah, so we're back at the anchor. And so now we have anchored, and there's our marker buoy right over there. So we came back pretty close to back where we wanted to be. Guys, so I just showed you guys the 3 new features that's in the 25.2 update for the Ghost trolling motor and HDS Pro units. Again, you got to have a Pro unit. And this works on a Ghost, this works on a Recon, and it works on the Simrad trolling motor. Okay, all 3 of those will work with this update and these features. Again, you got where you're anchoring off a location. Basically, you're anchoring at a distance. It's called anchoring at a distance. So that's one feature. The other is the orbit around a waypoint. Again, my suggestion on that is don't do 40 feet like I did in the video. Do 60 feet or maybe a little bit more, because it looks like it's not concentric on that waypoint itself. Okay, so that's that one. And then the depth routing, again, set your minimum and maximum depths. Use it to follow maybe a grass line, underwater grass line. Use it to follow a rock line or something like that. It's a really handy feature for that to keep you in that. Again, what I've noticed is that when you exit out of that thing, your unit reboots. Like I say, I'll add an addendum to the video if I can find a way to come out of that, but I'm going to report it to Lowrance. So anyway, hey guys, appreciate you watching this thing. I know it's a little bit probably goofy and not as smooth as some of my other ones, but I really wanted to get this one out to you. I know there's a couple other videos on it, but this fits in the same series as the other two I've done on 25.2 update. So anyway, appreciate you watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. Yep, bye.